Very exciting to begin the Torah again, to start again from Parshas Bereishis. The very fact that we read the Torah in a cycle, an annual cycle, automatically inserts within our lives a sense of renewal, a sense that we can go over things that we've learned before and find new meaning in familiar passages, and that's always the feeling that I get when we go back to Parshas Bereishis, that I have another opportunity to go through the concepts, the ideas, the language of the Torah, and find even more new things. So let's start in the beginning. Bereishis begins with the story of the creation of the world, and as I've said, in previous years, on many occasions, it's no chiddush. Many rabbis make this observation. It's just almost obvious, but what the Torah presents us when it comes to Parshas Bereishis is not necessarily cosmology. It's not explaining to us how the world was created from a scientific perspective, from a physical perspective. This is Hashem's presentation of the creation of the world. These are the details of the creation that Hashem has chosen to present to us in the Chumash for us to learn from, for us to learn about the creation. But more than that, if the Torah is a blueprint for living in this world, what we have is those elements of creation that Hashem wants us to learn from, to draw upon, to study and to incorporate into our lives. So the Torah is not about the Big Bang. The Torah is not about physics. The Torah is about lessons, and these lessons are conveyed through stories, and these lessons are conveyed through a description of creation. And so when we open it up and we begin in the first pasuk, so we find a very carefully crafted presentation of creation. And one thing that I noticed this year that I want to share with you is that the story of creation, if we take the description of the first 6 days of creation, 7 days with Shabbos, if we take just that description of those first days in Perek Aleph, what we find is that there is something else there besides the actual description of creation. And what I mean by that is, we read through the Psukim and it says Hashem created light. It says Hashem, created the firmament. Hashem created the fish and the birds and the animals, the stars, the sun, the moon. Hashem created all of these things, but there's something else there embedded into the description of creation. There's something else besides creation being offered to us in the Psukim that I want to highlight for you this morning. And this may be a subtle point, it may be somewhat obvious, but I think the way we frame it is important and significant. So I'm going to begin reading from the beginning, from Bereishis. Bereishis bara Elokim eis hashamayim ve'eis haaretz. Again, page 7 in the Steinsaltz, page 2 in the Art Scroll. Bereishis bara Elokim eis hashamayim ve'eis haaretz. In the beginning, which again, not again, but which is language that many of the commentaries contend with, because Bereishis seems to be modifying something, the beginning of, but it doesn't tell us what is the beginning of. And so it's translated in English as in the beginning, which makes sense in English, but in Hebrew, it's not as smooth. In Hebrew, it's in the beginning of, right? Bara Elokim, Hashem created. In the beginning of what? It doesn't say. And so you have a number of different interpretations how to understand that very first word, Bereishis. I don't want to focus on that, but I just want to highlight the fact that this word has its, I don't know if this is the correct term, but it's kind of like a dangling modifier. Right? It's modifying something, but it doesn't say what it's modifying. Bereishis bara Elokim, Hashem created eis hashamayim ve'eis haaretz, right? The heavens and the earth. And there's a wide discussion of whether this pasuk is an introductory pasuk, or this is part of the creation itself, whether this is part of the actual creative process. To me, it reads most easily. It flows best to read this as a header pasuk. This is a headline, right? When Hashem created the heavens and the earth, this is what happened. So what happened? Ve'aretz haisa sohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei sahom. The earth was unformed and empty. Again, two very difficult words to translate. I'm going with Rabbi Steinsaltz's translation. The earth was unformed and empty, and there was darkness upon the face of the deep. Again, what that means, we could spend hours talking about it, but that's not what I want to focus on. V'ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamayim, and the spirit of Hashem was hovering over the waters. So again, in my mind, these are introductory phrases as to what is going to be described, but according to others, this is the beginning of creation, and it's describing something that happened in the primordial stages of creation. But let's get into the particular days of creation. V'yomer Elokim yehi or, vayihi or. Hashem said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So the first thing Hashem created, at least Pasha Pshat, according to the way we're reading this, the first thing Hashem created was light, and He created light by making a declaration, right? Speech is used to create, right? Vayomer Elokim yehi or. Hashem says, "Let there be light," and there was light. And again, there's a lot of discussion about what it means, the significance of the fact that Hashem created by uttering. It doesn't say that Hashem made the light. Vayas, vayivra, vayitzer. Those are all verbs for creating or making, right? It doesn't say Hashem made the light. Hashem spoke that there should be light. Vayar Elokim es haor ki tov, and Hashem saw that the light was good. Vayavdel Elokim bein haor vein hachoshech, and Hashem separated between the light and the darkness. Vayikra Elokim la'or yom v'lachoshech kara laila. Vayer vayvoker yom echad. Hashem called the light day, and He called the darkness night. And it was evening, and it was morning the first day. So as I read these psukim this year, what stuck out to me is the fact that there's one phrase here that you could take out, and you still have the creation story. And it's a phrase that repeats itself a number of times over the course of the creation, and that is Vayar Elokim es haor ki tov. Hashem saw that the light was good. That obviously this is part of the story of creation that Hashem observed, but this is not Hashem engaged in creation, at least the way I'm reading it, right? When Hashem observes that the light is good, Hashem is not creating light at that moment. Hashem is observing His creation. To me, that's a separate element. That's a distinct dimension to the story of creation, that Hashem is engaged in creation, but at the same time, He's reflecting on creation. Vayar Elokim es haor ki tov, and I'd like to study that further this morning with you, because it's sticking out to me, and I think there's something important to learn from this. And as you all know, Hashem says this several times over the course of creation. Hashem observes that what He created is good. And again, just to make that subtle point again, so it's clear, to me, that's a separate dimension from creation, right? Creation is the act of creating those things. Hashem spoke that there should be light, and there was light. This is a separate activity in which Hashem then reflects on what He just created and declares it good. What does that mean, that Hashem is reflecting on the creation and declaring it good? And what does it mean? And why is Hashem doing it? Why is Hashem, in the course of His creative process, reflecting on something and saying it's good? Right? Again, the story the creation story makes sense without that phrase. Right? Hashem made the light. Hashem made the firmament. Hashem made the birds. And right? You could just say boom, 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 right? Hashem made all these things. What does it mean that during the creative process, Hashem pauses to do something else? Something which, in my mind, is not part of creation. It's not an act of creation, I should say. It's not an act of creation, but a reflection on the act of creation, while he's engaged in creation. So let's just take a look for a moment at the different instances in which this observation, where Hashem kaviyachol, as it were, takes a step back and observes and looks upon everything that he's doing. So we saw the first one in Pasuk Daled, Vayar Elokim es or ki tov. When's the next time? So the next time is in Pasuk Yud. And in Pasuk Yud, we are already in the third day. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, that the second day is the only day that doesn't get this observation, Vayar Elokim es or ki tov. Right? So on the second day, right, the first day he creates light and darkness. And on the second day, Hashem creates the rakia, the firmament, to separate between the waters. Okay. Now, that's the second day, but Hashem does not say Vayar Elokim ki tov, right? If we go to the third day, in which Hashem creates the dry land, and then all of the vegetation, there, what does it say in Pasuk Yud? Vayikra Elokim le'abasha eretz u'lemikvei hamayim kara yamim vayar Elokim ki tov. Right? Hashem called the dry land eretz. Hashem called the gathered waters yamim, seas, oceans, what have you. And then Hashem saw that it was good. Again, the creation story could read without this phrase. It doesn't need to say vayar Elokim ki tov. This is a distinct dimension or a distinct act separate from creation, where Hashem stands back and observes that it's good. I want to know why, and I want to know what that means. That's the second instance. There's a second time on the third day of creation in which Hashem says that, and that is, and let's just continue reading, verse 11. Vayomer Elokim tadshe haaretz desha esev mazriya zera eitz pri osa pri limino asher zarobo ala haaretz vayihi. Right? Hashem said, let the earth sprout grasses, vegetation yielding seed, and fruit tree bearing fruit in its kind, in which there is its seed upon the earth. And it was so. So Hashem creates all this, right? And then it describes that the earth responds. Vatotzei haaretz desha, esev mazriya zera limineu, ve'etz osa pri asher zarobo limineu, vayar Elokim ki tov. Right? The earth produced grasses, vegetation yielding seed in its kind, and a tree bearing fruit in which there was its seed in its kind. And Hashem saw that it was good. So a second time on the third day, Hashem steps back from creating and observes that it's good. Let's continue. The next is Pasuk Yud Ches, in the middle of the fourth day, right? Hashem is creating the celestial bodies, and in the context of creating the celestial bodies, it says, right? So you have the sun and the moon, and they have dominion over the day and over the night, and to separate between light and darkness. Vayar Elokim ki tov vayer vayboker yom revi'i. And again, Hashem steps back from creation and observes ki tov, it is good. Verse 21. We're now in day 5. Let's just continue. I'll read verse 20 and then 21. Vaymer Elokim yishritzu hamayim sheretz nefesh chaya v'ofi ofeif al haaretz al pnei rikia hashamayim. Right? So Hashem said, let the water swarm swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth on the face of the firmament of the heavens. Vayivra Elokim es hataninim hagedolim. Hashem creates the great serpents, whatever that means. Ve'is kol nefesh hachaya haromeses asher shartzu hamayim leminehem. Ve'is kol of kanaf leminehu vayar Elokim ki tov. Right, and every living creature that crawls, which the water swarmed in their kinds, and every winged bird in its kind, and God saw that it was good. Vayar Elokim ki tov, on the 5th day as well. And then on the 6th day, Hashem creates animals. Vayar Elokim totzei haaretz nefesh chaya lemina behema v'remes v'chaysa eretz lemina vayihi chen. Right? Hashem said, let the earth bring forth all living things. Right? Living creatures according to its kind, animals and crawling creatures, and the beasts of the earth in their kind. And it was so. Pasuk Chafei, Vayas Elokim es chayas haaretz lemina v'esmeim lemina v'es kol remes ha'adam leminehu vayar Elokim ki tov. right? God made the beasts of the earth in its kind, and the animals in its kind, and every creature that crawls upon the ground in its kind, and Hashem saw that it was good. Now, this is the sixth time in the course of creation that Hashem looked, observed what he created, and declared it good. 6 times. 1 on the first day, 2 on the third day, right? It skips the second day. 1 on the fourth day, 1 on the fifth day, and once on the 6th day. And what's interesting, we'll have to talk about as well, is the fact that humanity has not yet been created, right? I stopped. Once it said, Vayar Elokim ki tov on the 6th day, that was only after the animals were created. After humanity was created, Hashem does not say, Vayar Elokim ki tov. And that's something we're going to have to understand, why Hashem doesn't make that declaration about humanity directly. Hashem does say at the end of the 6th day, Pasuk Lamed Aleph. I'm now on page 15 in the Steinsaltz, and page 8 in the Art Scroll. Pasuk Lamed Aleph, verse 31. Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'nei tov ma'od. Hashem looked at all that he had created, and he said it was very good. Tov ma'od. Vayar vayvoker yom hashishi. It was the 6th day, which is the end of the creative process, more or less. Whether Shabbos is considered a day that's created, that's a separate topic. But to conclude the 6 days of work, the 6 days of creation, Hashem gives a general, he stands back and looks at all that he has created and declares it is very good. Again, that's just another instance, one that's more intense, of Hashem doing something distinct from creation in the course of creation. And now that we've gone through all the instances, let's just summarize again our questions before we begin to answer them. Our questions are, why does Hashem do this other thing during creation in which he observes and declares that the creation is good? What are we supposed to learn from that? And then along the way, we noticed that day 2 doesn't get Vayar Elokim ki tov, and humanity doesn't get their own personal Vayar Elokim ki tov. Rather, Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'nei tov ma'od. Now, what's interesting is that the Ramban addresses this question to a degree. He quotes Rashi. Rashi is clearly sensitive to this issue. Me making this observation and asking this question is not original, because I believe even Rashi was clearly it clearly caught his attention that Hashem should do something else during creation, namely Vayar Elokim ki tov. So Rashi says, that clearly Hashem was doing something else here. When it says that Hashem declared that the light was good, Vayavdel, and he separated, what's happening is, according to the Medrash, that Hashem sees that this light is very special and is not fitting for everybody, and so Hashem reserves this light that was created on the first day, reserves it for the tzaddikim, for the righteous, in the end of days. Now, that's a midrashic approach, but what motivates Rashi to cite this medrash is the fact that Hashem is doing something else besides creating, right? Hashem creates the light, and then Hashem notices and has to reserve that light. That's not part of creation. That's a detour in my mind. That's a what's the word I'm looking for? That's a tangent, right? That's a tangent from creation. Hashem created light, and then he decided to take that light and reserve it for tzaddikim, according to the Medrash. But what that Medrash highlights is the fact that Hashem is creating, and then, I don't want to say pausing creation, but he's stopping to do something, which is to declare that it's good. And so whether you accept Rashi's approach or not, whether it whether it resonates with you or not, clearly Rashi is sensitive to the issue that I'm trying to highlight. So the Ramban cites Rashi, and the Ramban cites the Ibn Ezra, who also gives his explanation. and the Ramban has his own approach. The reason why the Ramban doesn't like Rashi and Ibn Ezra's approach is because it makes it sound like Hashem is changing his mind, or Hashem didn't realize something at first, which he then noticed, right? He created the light, then he noticed, oh, you know what? I created light. I really should do something else with it, right? And that bothers the Ramban on a theological level. And so the Ramban takes a different approach, one that resonates with me, and one that I'd like to kind of take in a slightly different direction. What does the Ramban say? I'll just quote a few words and translate, and then obviously I'll explain it in depth. Aval haseder v'maaseh Bereishis ki hotzas hadvarim el hapoal yikra amira. Remember before I highlighted how Hashem creates the world not using verbs like he made or he fashioned or he created, but rather he spoke. So the Ramban says that how does Hashem bring things into existence? Through speech. Vayomer Elokim yehi or, Vayomer yehi rakia, Vayomer tadshei haaretz. Right? So Hashem brings things into existence through speech. Right? There's that Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Basara Ma'amaros Nivra Ha'olam. Hashem creates the world with 10 utterances, 10 spoken things. Right? So Hashem brings things into existence through speech. And listen to what the Ramban says: V'kiyumam yikra re'iyah. V'kiyumam, their maintenance, their sustainability is called re'iyah. Right? So it's not that Hashem sees or observes or notices what he just created. No, what Re'iyah means here for the Ramban is that that's how Hashem establishes them as something, as giving them lasting, giving them not lasting power, but giving them, the ability to endure. And he quotes some psukim from around Tanakh where the word ra'ah doesn't necessarily mean to see, but rather means to establish, right? And he even quotes language from the Gemara, right? But ro'eh here means that Hashem wants them to endure. Hashem brings them into existence, and then wants them to endure. I'll read just one more passage from the Ramban. V'ha'inyan lahoros, and it's coming to teach us ki amidasam b'cheftso. Right, because the fact that they should maintain, the fact that they should endure, is by His will, by Hashem's will. If Hashem should withdraw His will, His desire for them to maintain, they would cease to exist. And so, what this means theologically or philosophically is that it's one thing for Hashem to bring something into existence. It's another step, or it's another stage for Hashem to will that it should continue. Right? Hashem is basically Hashem brings things into creation, and if Hashem does not want it to stay, then it would cease to exist. There's a concept, there's a mystical concept that the world only exists right now, this moment, because Hashem wills it to exist. Every moment, Hashem is in essence deciding to sustain the world. We say in davening, in the Berchos Kriya Shema, HaMechadesh B'tuva B'chol Yom Tamid. Hashem renews in His goodness every day, always. What does it mean? Hashem renews, right? It means that every moment of existence is because Hashem wills the universe. Hashem wills existence to continue. The moment Hashem says, "I'm done," I no longer will this to continue, everything will turn off like a TV set. Everything will just go blank. So what's Vayar Elokim Ki Tov? Vayar Elokim Ki Tov means that Hashem brought something in existence and now wants it to endure. Now, what does this mean for us? So what I think we need to add to this idea of the Ramban in order to understand it better is to notice when Hashem says Vayar Elokim Ki Tov. When does Hashem say that he wills something to endure. And here we take note of the two places in which Hashem does not say Vayalokim ki tov, right? Day 2 and after the creation of humanity. And there are those who observe that it's true that Hashem does not say Vayalokim ki tov in day 2, but that doesn't mean that Hashem doesn't say Vayalokim ki tov after the creation of the firmament. What do I mean? Let's go back to day 2. It's on page 9 in the Steinsaltz and page 4 in the Art Scroll. Vayomer Elokim yehi rakia besoch hamayim v'hi mavdil bein mayim lamayim. Right? So Hashem creates the rakia, which we'll call the firmament, to separate between the waters. Right? Vayas Elokim es harakia, Hashem makes the rakia, vayavdel bein hamayim asher mitachas harakia v'bein hamayim asher me'al harakia. And he separates between the waters below and the waters above the firmament, and so it was Vaikra Elokim l'rakia shamayim vayhi erev vayvoker yom sheni. So Hashem created light and darkness on the first day. On the second day, Hashem creates this rakia to separate between the waters. What does the world look like at that point? Can you conjure in your mind what it would look like? It's difficult. It's difficult to understand what that means, that the rakia comes between the waters above and the waters below. It's very difficult to understand, especially if you think about the third day, right? Thinking about the vegetation sprouting forth, that's something we can conjure in our minds. That's something we can imagine. The fish coming into being and the birds, we can understand what we could conjure an image. The second day is very difficult. And that's because, as some observe, that the work on the second day does not reach its own completion until the third day. I'm not going to go into why Hashem split that up, but basically the work of the second day is not done. The work of the first day was done, right? The light and darkness, done. The third day, right? The land, the vegetation, done. But the second day, the rakia between the waters, that's not the final stage of the creation of the universe. It goes into the third day. Now watch what happens, right? Vayer vayvoker yom sheni. Now pasuk tes, verse 9. Vayomer Elokim yikavu hamayim yitachas hashamayim el makom echad v'seira'eh hayabasha. These waters that were separated by the rakia in the second day are now collected into one place in order that the dry land should appear. Vayehi chen, and so it was. Vayikra Elokim le'yabasha eretz u'limkei hamayim karyamim vayar Elokim ki tov. And Hashem saw that it was good. So you see that even though there is no vayar Elokim ki tov on day 2, nevertheless, what was created on day 2 was finished on day 3 and declared ki tov. It was declared ki tov when it reached its completed stage. So Vayar Elokim ki tov is a reflection on the fact that Hashem has completed this part of creation. So every time you see Hashem say Vayar Elokim ki tov, there's a sense of completion. There's a sense that this is the way it should be. The rakia that was created on the second day, that's too basic. It's not completed. It's not finished, and so therefore it doesn't get a ki tov. And the reason why I connect this with the idea of the Ramban is because what the Ramban was saying is that Vayar Elokim ki tov means that Hashem wants it to endure. So it makes sense that Hashem wants something to endure once it reaches its stage of completion. Once we see that something is complete the way it is, Hashem wills that it should endure in that way. And so I think with this in hand, when we turn to the creation of humanity, clearly there's a very powerful lesson in the fact that it doesn't say Vayar Elokim ki tov, because there is something incomplete. The way humanity was created is in a fashion that reflects an element of incompleteness. And I think there's two ways to understand that. One way is to recognize that there is another creation story. And in that second creation story in Perek Beis, we find a very different account of how humanity was created, right? In Perek Aleph, in the first account of creation, right, Hashem creates man and woman together and blesses them pru urvu. But in the second account of creation, man is created, and then Hashem declares, Lo tov heyos hadam levado. It is not good that man should be alone. And so there, that word tov, which signals to us in the first account of creation that something is complete, that something is going to endure that way, that does not apply to humanity because humanity's creation story is not over yet in the first parak. It's completed in the second parak. And in the second parak, you have that key word, tov. Lo tov hayos adam levado. Let's take a quick look. Here we go. Pasuk Yud Ches, chapter 2, verse 18. Perek Beis, Pasuk Yud Ches, page 19 in the Steinsaltz, and page 12 in the Art Scroll. Verse 18, right? Yeah. Okay. So it says, Vayomer Hashem Elokim lo tov heyos adam levado esa lo ezer kinegdo. So that tov, right? That tov that was present in so many aspects of creation, that word tov, which was not applied to humanity in Perek Aleph, now comes back. That word, that concept of tov, right, comes back in the second account. And to me, what that means is that what the Torah presents for the creation of humanity in the first parak is not over yet, and you have to go to the second parak to see the full picture of the creation of humanity. And still, though, it doesn't say Vayar Elokim ki tov. It says lo tov heyos adam levado. It's in the negative, and that is because the concept of feeling that something is complete the way it is plays out very differently for humanity than every other part of creation. Every other part of creation, Hashem finishes and wants to endure the way it is when the world's created. Humanity, by design, is created fallible and incomplete, and so therefore is infused with a constant aspiration towards completeness, towards shleimut, towards tov. That's the reason why it doesn't say Vayar Elokim ki tov by humanity. Instead, it just says Lo tov heyos adam levado, is because humanity, by definition, is incomplete. And what it means to be human is to strive, to aspire to come as close to completeness as we can, primarily in our relationship with Hashem. So, and what's interesting to me is that if you trace this word tov from the creation through this second story of the creation of humanity, Lo tov heyos adam levado, the word tov appears in two very important places, right? In Parshas Bereishis, right? Adam and Chava eat from the Eitz Hadas Tov Vara. They eat from the tree of good and bad, or good and evil. And so now that we've highlighted the significance of the word tov, we have to understand what that means now for the story of the sin of eating from the Eitz Hadas. One other place in Parshas Bereishis where tov comes up again is in Cain and Hevel. Right? In Cain and Hevel, there's a very strange pasuk, a pasuk that's very difficult to understand. Because after Cain commits his sin, Hashem says to him, Halo im teitiv se'es. Halo im teitiv, if you do good, right? If you achieve good, se'es, you will be elevated. That's just a simple translation of it, an extremely difficult pasuk to translate. But here you have this word tov, which marks the creation, which teaches us something very important about creation and about humanity, about ourselves. That word tov plays a significant role in the other two very important stories of Parshas Bereishis, eating from the Eitz Hadas Tov Vara, and Cain and Hevel in Im Teitiv Se'es V'Im Lo Seitiv La Pesach Chatas Roveitz. So let's just take a few moments with the time we have left to understand what Tov means in the context of these stories. So eating from the tree, that's a familiar story to many of us, I would imagine. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at how Tov is presented in that story. All right, so turn to pasuk Perek Gimel pasuk Aleph, which is page 21 in the Steinsaltz, and page 14 in the Ark Scroll. And it says, "Vayiyu shnehem arumim ha'adam v'ishto v'lo yisbo shashu." Sorry, that's the last pasuk of the last parak. Right, so they were both arumim. They're both naked. They were not embarrassed. V'anachash haya arum mikol chayas hasadeh. Sorry, one second. Go back to Parak Beis. I'm sorry, I apologize. Parak Beis, where the commandment is first given. Parak Beis pasuk Tesvav 2:15, which is on page 19 in the Steinsaltz and page 12 in the Art Scroll. Chapter 2, verse 15. 15 and 16. Let's go to 16. Vayitzav Hashem Elokim al ha'adam lemor mikol eitz hagan achol tochel. Right? Hashem commanded Adam, saying, from every tree you shall eat. Umi eitz hadas tov vara lo sochal mimenu ki biyom acholcha mimenu mos tamus. Right? And from the tree of knowledge of tov vara you shall not eat, because on the day that you eat from it, you will die. So that's the first thing that Hashem says about the Eitz Hadas. The Eitz Hadas Tov Vara, that when you eat it, you will die. What we see later on in Perek Gimel is what the Nachash reports, and that is V'yisem kelokim yodei Tov Vara. Right? The Nachash says that Hashem knows, that Elokim knows that when you eat from the tree, you will be like Elokim, Yodei Tovara, knowing good from bad. And as the story progresses, we do see that that's essentially what happens. Their eyes are opened. They do gain a certain kind of knowledge, and then at the end of the story, after Hashem makes clothing for them, there's a pasuk that says, that there's a declaration that's made, right? Hein hadam haya ke'achad v'menu ladas tov vara, right? Now that humanity is like us, in the plural, it's Hashem Elokim, right? Hashem basically says that they are Yodei Tov Vara. Okay. So what does Tovara mean in this context? So I guess the most popular explanation is that Adam and Chava did not have free will before they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, and so what that means is that the knowledge of good and bad is the ability to choose between good and bad. That Adam and Chava were created without a Yetzirah, without a negative inclination, without the free will to choose between to make choices between good and bad, and all they did was connect with Hashem and serve Hashem the way that Hashem wanted. But by eating from the tree, they now have the capacity to choose to do the wrong thing. I don't want to argue against that, but I do want to refine that a little bit in light of the fact that Tov as a concept plays such an important role in the entire description of creation. And what I would like to say is that, you know, in addition to the notion that humanity gains free will through eating from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you know, I think there's something deeper because it's das is to me doesn't sound like will, right? It doesn't mean like, oh, now that we know good and bad, now we have free will. Das, knowledge, to me is a deeper and more profound appreciation of both tov, which is the completeness of things, and ra, which is the terrible lack of completeness in things. And for Adam and Chava to now have access to knowledge, to understanding of what's truly complete and what's not truly complete, I think is dangerous. It's dangerous for Adam and Chava to have this knowledge, which is why Hashem wants to prevent them from having it, and because they do gain it, they are banned from the garden, and now they must strive. They must strive more on their own to find, you know, completeness in this world. You know, their curse is that, you know, right? Everything is going to be harder. Everything is going to be more painful, and I think it's because they had an understanding of what completeness in this world is, which was not good for them. And so therefore Hashem places them in a context in which it'll be harder for them to achieve that, because at the end of the day, Hashem wants humanity to live with an aspiration towards completeness. For them to have too much of an understanding of what Hashem understands of completeness, it will dull their senses. They won't necessarily need to strive as much, and so you know, them sinning and Hashem placing them outside of the garden and making things harder on them is kind of resetting the equilibrium, resetting the balance between you know, how much humanity knows about what completeness should be versus how much they need to aspire and work towards that completeness. And that becomes refined even further with the story of Cain and Hevel. Because in the story of Cain and Hevel, as I said before, Cain is told, Im tetiv se'es, right? If you turn to page 27 in the Steinsaltz, I'm in chapter 4 now, and page 20 in the Art Scroll. So pasuk Vav, verse 6. Vayomer Hashem el Cain, lama chara lach v'lama naflu fanecha. Right? Why are you angry? Why have you become downcast? Right? Halo im tetiv se'es, v'im lo se'tiv la pesach chatas rovetz ve'lecha teshukaso ve'atod timshol. Now this is a very poetic pasuk. Very poetic, and what I mean by that is it's very it's poetic and very difficult to understand on its surface, and you have a very wide variety of explanations of what this means. Remember, this is before Cain kills Hevel. Hashem says this to him before this. Only after that does it say, "Vayomer Cain al Hevel achi vayhi osam bazav Cain al Hevel achi vayahargehu." But what is Hashem saying to Cain at this point, and what is it with the word tov? Haloim tetiv seis. And so I think what Hashem is saying to Cain is that whatever you're feeling, whatever lack of completeness you're feeling because I did not accept your offering, hello im tetiv, if you continue to pursue goodness, if you continue to pursue completeness, se'es, you'll be able to bear the mistakes and the pitfalls. That tov, the concept of tov, meaning it means a notion of completeness and something that humanity is supposed to aspire to. Hashem is trying to convey that to Cain, and Hashem is trying to say that even though things didn't go your way, im tetiv, but if you continue to pursue tov, se'es, right? You can elevate yourself. You can accomplish. The im lo setiv, but if you don't, lapesach atas rovetz, sin is crouching at the door, right? If you don't continue to pursue, if you don't continue to aspire and work towards tov, then sin crouches at the door. Ve'elecha tshukasov atatim shalbo, right? And your yearning, your desire, its desire for you is part of what's crouching at the door. Again, it's difficult to translate, but you may rule over it, right? Ve'elecha tshukasov, it's coming after you, but you can overcome it. So the fact that this concept of tov is now not a noun but a verb, im tetiv, if you pursue good, it to me just refines this concept of the pursuit of completeness, of shleimut, which is embedded into us as a yearning of something that we will constantly strive for, but not necessarily achieve all the time. And Cain was the first one who really had to struggle with that and really had to reckon with that, and he did not do well. But the way in which he conducted himself leaves a lot of lessons for us. I just want to go back to one tov, which I have not talked about a lot, and that is the tov at the end of creation. Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'hinei tov ma'od. That Hashem looks back on all of creation as a whole and declares that it is tov ma'od. And obviously there's a lot of commentary, well-known commentary on the word ma'od. What does it mean, ma'od? But to me, Hashem has created a world in which there are things which Hashem placed there at the time of creation that continue to endure to this day. Right, the light that Hashem created, the sun, the moon, and the stars, nature, all of that endures to today. And at the same time, you have humanity, which also endures. But humanity is given a very, very special challenge. That challenge to continue to aspire to completeness. The completeness that the rest of nature enjoys every single day, every single moment, for us is elusive. And that sense of completeness, Hashem looks at this world that is created and he says it's tov ma'od, because even with the fact that tov is something that we're constantly aspiring to, nevertheless, Hashem has put us in a world in which we can achieve, in which we can succeed, a world in which we can not just aspire, but actually get closer to tov. And so the fact that Hashem would describe all of creation as tov ma'od is a reflection of the fact that Hashem wills, like the Ramban said, Hashem wills that the world should be constructed in this way. And it's a world in which we can benefit so much, and a world in which we can experience the benefit of our own growth. We can see ourselves im tetiv se'es. We can see ourselves pursuing good and being elevated because of that. And that for Hashem is tov ma'od. Hashem cannot call the creation of humanity tov because we're constantly aspiring to the tov. But looking at us in the context of the entire world and what we're able to do, what we're able to accomplish, that is tov ma'od. All right, thank you all so much for joining me this morning. Have a great rest of the week, and I hope to see you online at some point while I'm still in this quarantine. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.